Today I want to continue something I started in my previous video. In that one, I talked about bad people in general, and I made a point about probability. Since INFJs make up only about 1 to 3% of the population, the math alone tells us that the vast majority of harmful people out there are simply not from this type. Most bad people belong to the other types because they make up most of the world. But that does not mean a bad INFJ does not exist. And today I want to talk about exactly that. What does a bad INFJ actually look like? What makes them potentially more unsettling than a bad version of some other types? And if you know someone who identifies as INFJ and something feels off about them, how do you even begin to understand what is happening or try to help? Before I go any further, the usual reminder. I am not a therapist, a psychologist, or any kind of mental health professional. This is a learning diary. I research, I reflect, I share. Everything here is meant to help you think, not to diagnose anyone, including yourself. Now, let me start with something I genuinely believe, based on my own experience and what I have observed. People are shaped by their environment, deeply and sometimes permanently. If you surround yourself with people who are dishonest, manipulative, cruel, or self-serving, that environment will eventually affect how you think and how you respond to the world. It may not happen overnight, but it happens. The longer you spend in a toxic environment without any counterbalance, the more likely it is that some of those patterns will start to feel normal and then start to feel like options, and then, for some people, start to become habits. This is not unique to INFJs. It is a human thing. But for this personality type specifically, there is a layer to this that I think is worth looking at carefully. INFJs are perceptive. I mean, really perceptive. They read people well. They pick up on what motivates someone, what makes them insecure, what they are afraid of, what they are hoping for. In a healthy, well-grounded person, that skill is used with care. It serves connection. It helps them support and understand the people they love. It makes them excellent at reading situations and navigating complex relationships. But that same skill, in someone who has been deeply hurt, who has lost trust in people, who has absorbed too many toxic patterns over time, can become something much more uncomfortable. Because they still have the ability to read people. They still understand what buttons to push. They still know how to make someone feel seen and understood. The difference is that now, that understanding might be used not to connect, but to control. This is one of the things that makes a bad INFJ a specific kind of difficult. They do not become bad in an obvious or clumsy way. They are subtle. They know how to appear trustworthy. They know how to seem like the most empathetic person in the room. They can make you feel like they truly understand you, because in some ways, they do. And that is what makes it hard to spot when something has shifted in them, because the tools they are using to manipulate look almost identical to the tools they use to genuinely care. There is also the issue of vision. INFJs have a very strong sense of how things should be, and they can be quietly intense about it. In a healthy state, that vision is channeled toward good things. They advocate for people who cannot advocate for themselves. They hold on to ideals even when it is inconvenient. They push for what is right even when no one else is paying attention. But in an unhealthy state, that same intensity can turn inward and become something controlling or even self-righteous. The conviction that they can see what others cannot, that they understand people and situations at a level most do not, can tip into a belief that their judgment is always correct, that the ends justify the means, that they are the only one who truly sees what needs to happen, and therefore they are justified in doing whatever it takes to make it happen. That combination, deep perceptiveness plus unchecked conviction, is genuinely dangerous if it develops without self-awareness or accountability. Now, one of the most important things to understand about this is that it rarely happens suddenly. A bad INFJ did not wake up one morning and decide to become a difficult person. The path is usually long, and it is usually full of pain that was not properly processed. INFJs who go dark often got there through a combination of deep betrayal, unresolved trauma, prolonged exposure to toxic relationships or environments, and a slow erosion of the belief that people or the world can actually be trusted. When someone who naturally carries so much empathy and idealism finally hits the end of their ability to sustain that, something can shut down. And what fills the space is not always neutral. Sometimes it is bitterness. Sometimes it is cynicism so deep that it reshapes how they see everything and everyone. Sometimes it is a kind of emotional detachment that looks like peace from the outside, but is actually just numbness. And here is the part one find worth being honest about. Being a bad person is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet and convincing. A bad INFJ might not be aggressive or openly hostile. They might just be quietly controlling, selectively kind, strategically vulnerable. They may share just enough of themselves to make you trust them without ever actually being vulnerable. They may seem like they are supporting you while actually keeping you in a position where you need them. They may be extraordinarily good at framing their behavior in language that sounds reasonable and even noble because they have thought about it more than most people ever would. These are patterns worth knowing, not to make you paranoid about every INFJ you encounter, but to help you understand that type does not guarantee goodness. Character does. And character can erode when the conditions are bad enough and the support is not there. So, what can you do if you see this happening in someone you care about? First, be honest with yourself about what you are seeing. If something consistently feels off, if the person you are looking at feels different from who they used to be, if their empathy seems like it has been replaced with something colder, trust that observation. Do not explain it away because you know they have been through difficult things, or because they used to be different, or because they can still be warm towards certain people in certain moments. Patterns matter more than isolated moments. Second, if you are in a position to do so and it feels safe, bring it up directly. Not as an accusation, but as a genuine concern. Something like, I have noticed something feels different with you lately. I am not trying to judge you. I just want to check in honestly. People who are slipping into dark patterns sometimes do not realize how far they have drifted. And for a type that is deeply introspective, having someone name it calmly and without attack can sometimes be the thing that starts a real conversation. Third, understand that you cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. You can care about someone. You can make yourself available. You can be honest. But real change, for this type or any type, requires the person themselves to look honestly at their own behavior and decide something needs to shift. If they are not willing to do that, no amount of effort on your part will be enough. And protecting yourself in the meantime is not abandonment. It is just being realistic about what you can and cannot do for another person. And if you are an INFJ reading this and you recognize yourself in any of what I have described, I want to say something directly to you. Recognizing it is not shameful. It is actually the most important first step. The path from being hurt to becoming someone who hurts others is not one most people choose consciously. It is usually a series of small decisions made in pain. And the fact that you are willing to look honestly at yourself, to ask whether your patterns are healthy, to consider the possibility that something has gotten off track, that takes more courage than most people give themselves credit for. The traits that define this type at their best, the perceptiveness, the capacity for deep connection, the intensity of feeling, the strong sense of what is right, all of those things are still there. They did not disappear. They just got redirected by pain. And that redirection can be undone. Not easily. Not overnight. But it can. The first step, always, is honesty. Not the kind of honesty that tears yourself down, but the kind that says, I see what is happening here, and I am not going to pretend otherwise anymore. Before I go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever seen someone change in a way that felt like they went from being someone deeply kind to someone who used that same depth in harmful ways? And if so, what did you notice first? Drop it in the comments, because I think this is a conversation that does not happen enough, and your perspective might help someone else make sense of something they have been experiencing. Thanks for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I want to be upfront and share that I use this text-to-speech voice to tell my stories because as a full-time ESL teacher, I have to be very careful with my vocal cords. Managing vocal nodules means I have to save my voice for my students, but I didn't want that to stop me from sharing these unfiltered thoughts with you. I'm Jhonna, and I'm currently working toward my goal of 1,000 subscribers so I can finally monetize this channel and turn this passion into a sustainable part of my future. This is my diary of solo living here in the Philippines, and your support, whether through a comment or a sub, helps me keep this channel growing. If you would like to help out even more, you can check out the Buy a Treat for My Pets link in the description. My dogs definitely appreciate the love. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next update. Thank you for being such an important part of this journey. I'm Jhonna, and I will see you in the next one.